So I want to start off with what right looks like. And I want to use an example that's relevant to us in this course. Orca captivity, or killer whale captivity. As those of you who've been to SeaWorld know, SeaWorld keeps these killer whales in large tanks throughout the country. And many scientists, veterinarians, PETA, think that this is a barbaric practice that has a cruel effect on these killer whales. And in 2014, a documentary called Blackfish came out, which described the effects of captivity on these mammals. And I bring up this documentary because it accomplished what scientists and veterinarians and other experts have been trying to say, but this documentary accomplished that in a visual format. And because of it, SeaWorld stock price has gone down 50%, attendance is down 30%, corporate profits are down 20%, all because of this visual medium that explained this practice in ways that scientists and veterinarians could not. And the reason I want to bring this up, because let's pretend that you work at a nonprofit or you work for one of these organizations and you're told, hey, let's put together a slide for me on SeaWorld practices and why this practice is barbaric. And most of you would probably put together a slide that looks somewhat like this. Again, a heading with a bunch of bullets and maybe a cool little picture there that goes into detail. And this is the worst way to present information. And just to give you the highlights, the first bullet is talking about life expectancy. It's 66% that in captivity, 66% that in the wild. 0 humans killed in the wild. 3 humans have been killed in captivity. Only 1% of killer whales have dorsal fin collapse, and I'll show you a picture of that in a second. While all males in captivity have that dorsal fin collapse, and infant mortality is 50% that of whales for whales in captivity. So the bottom line, again, orca captivity is a barbaric practice that should not be continued, and affects the well-being of the whales in SeaWorld parks. Pretty straightforward, and that's what most people would do. 90% of people would do if you're told, hey, put together one slide or a couple of bullet points that describes the negative effects of killer whale captivity. This is, again, the worst way to present information. First, numbers. Never use percentages. They're just too confusing and they don't give as much detail as you want. The best way to do it, instead of saying 66% or 50% as I highlighted there, just say use the flat numbers, 1 and 2. When you hear a dentist or you hear a commercial, you tend to hear not 50% of dentists or 75% of dentists recommend this toothbrush. You hear 3 and 4 dentists or 8 and 10 dentists recommend this. Flat numbers will always give you more power to your argument. In addition, the bottom line, it's not highlighted there. It's if it's buried in the slide, difficult to read, and someone might not, especially if in their hurry, might not get that key takeaway from the slide. In addition, there are other issues. Small font. Font is far too small. Even if you're presenting on a large screen, this font's not going to be read, and there's no point in presenting it or even putting words on here if they're not going to get read. And then finally, and I think this is the most important, it's too wordy. Too many words, too many full sentences, too many just bullet points and headings, which you want to avoid. So that's the problem with this slide. This is how you would make it better. So instead of saying 66% of whales are killed or have a life expectancy, you would use this chart. And instead of using 66%, you use the flat numbers. And you use a picture to really, really define your point. So again, 35 years is the life expectancy in captivity, 50 years in the wild. And using, instead of a complicated graph or chart, a picture that speaks 1,000 words with a bar graph with numbers that a fifth grader can understand. So next chart. Again, we're talking about that dorsal fin collapse that I talked about there. 99% have normal dorsal fins. All male captivities have dorsal fin collapse in the wild. Here, again, instead of saying 50% of infant mortality, just use flat numbers. 1 in 2 orcas will die in infancy, and you're using an emotive picture that underlines your point of that baby killer whale in captivity or being birthed in captivity, knowing that 1 in 2 will die in infancy. Again, separate slide, separate picture, very, very emotive picture that your audience is going to take away from. And then finally, again, the number of humans killed. In captivity, 3 humans and 12 have been injured. In the wild, 0 incidents against humans. And again, you're using here pictures to underline your point. You're using a contrast, which is important. You're using a left to right contrast, with one side saying 3 killed with the picture and the other side saying 0 killed with a more satisfying picture. And again, the contrast between the two will make this slide stick out to your audience. So I guarantee you, again, I doubt many people were killer whale experts coming into this course, but I guarantee you will remember this information, these statistics far beyond this course because of the way this information is presented.